A, a brief introduction of the keynote speaker. Designation and organization, senior trainer and consultant, Zen International Systems. Academic qualification, BE, Instrumentation and Control Engineering, PhD in Management Science. Areas of specialization and experience, IRCS certified lead auditor trainer for various management systems, registered auditor and trainer for quality, environment and safety, master trainer for Z and assessor for Z, green productivity specialist and cybersecurity, digitization and industry 4.0, circular economy trainer, 35 years in certification field, patented design development. Now, please welcome Dr. Sanjeevani Gogawale, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Vaibhav. And will you go ahead with the screen sharing or should I go ahead with it?
Go ahead with it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I believe I'm audible and my screen is
Yes,
also
ma'am.
visible.
Yes, ma'am. You're audible, ma'am. Screen is also visible.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this August gathering. And pretty happy to address the theme of energy management system. This is the latest entry in the management system regime. Previously, energy management was generally addressed through environmental management system. However, when we start reviewing energy in general, we realize basically we are talking about the natural resource conservation. Of late, with the ESG, that is environment sustainability goals being the focus, the rules and regulations related to energy are being hiked. And that is the main reason that we all are going to focus on how best we can conserve the energy. And so the energy bills are increased day by day so that we can influence the behavior of our wasteful activities in energy, isn't it? So energy is coming in the forefront, not only restricted to environment, but also the other management systems like quality, safety, and any other management system for that matter as a part of waste reduction and improvisation. If you'll remember, each and every management system talks about effectiveness and efficiency as two triggers for the improvisation. And when we talk about energy management, we are talking about the efficiency management. With that logic, energy management becomes a foundation and basic requirement for all the management system standards. With this background and elaboration about why go for energy management, let me start my presentation. I'm Dr. Sanjeevani. I'm already being introduced, but one introduction which is skipped and I'd like to highlight is I got an opportunity to work with Dr. Sundar Kataria in DNV. And in DNV, since those days, that is early 90s, we were definitely talking about various loss management controls. In fact, DNV has propagated the loss management control principle where we said substandard act and substandard condition can be controlled through the systems. Influencing the employee behavior and influencing the situation are the two focus areas for any management system, which is now universally accepted. So when we are going to talk about the energy management system, that is 50,001, we are going to talk about the substandard act or the behavior norms where energy losses can occur. And all of us, right from school days or even at home, are made aware that when you don't need the lights, don't put it on, right? That's a simple electrical energy loss control. But how many of us have ever been consciously putting in efforts to replace the fluorescent tubes or the bulbs by LED tubes? Hardly any. Because we are not aware about the incurring losses of switching over to more energy efficient devices. That chalta hai approach or the status quo matters a lot. And that is exactly where the behavior and the change management and the leadership abilities, and of course, a sound management system plays a major role. So when we are talking about 50001, that is energy management system, we are going to look at the basic behavioral aspects as well as the control aspects or the system aspects. There are a lot of benefits to an individual because you develop a cultured, systematic approach. And indeed, an organization, as I said, it is a foundation for all efficient performance. And of course, the cost reduction. It has a lot of societal aspects also because energy is generated from the natural resources. Let it be thermal through the fuel or the oil and petrol, or it can be the electricity. You name it, it utilizes and consumes the natural resources, which it takes years together to develop. And just one casual, uncontrolled action can drain it within no time. We all are well aware that the natural resources are depleting very fast. The alternate energy efforts that everybody are putting in, including the hydrogen or solar, each have their own limitation. So we have to focus on effective and efficient use of energy through an energy management system. Let us understand what does the standard talk about through the elemental reviews. And indeed, we are going to have a question answers. I'll be counting on Vaibhav to help me out in navigating through the chat messages as well as the question answers. You
Yes,
can
ma'am.
raise your hands and ask me if you have any questions. Otherwise, use the chat message. If not, at the fag end, we already have a question answer session. Vaibhav has already confirmed he is available. So team, let's understand the basic fundamental fact. It was in early 1800, electricity was not very popular and we used to use the candles and fire as a major source of light. Over a time, the bulbs, thanks to the invention by the efforts put in by the scientists, we could have that fluorescent lamp, incandescent lamp. Then we have the LED, LCD innovations that you can see. However, as we say that these are all based on the electricity or natural resources, which are depleting very fast. So very soon we will not be having this access. And unless we control our behavior norm, we'll be forced to go and use whatever is available and accessible sources of energy. Team, all of us can manage to read on the candlelight, or rather we can cherish candlelight. But can we run a machinery on a candlelight? Of course not. So unless we take some proactive steps for energy management, we will be no longer existence in the business. So in nutshell, energy management is a hard line, or energy is a hard throw for our business activity. If we have to be in the business, we have to be energy efficient. Now, understanding the management system 50,000 family. 50,003 gives you the guidelines of the direct indirect impact calculation for the certification and the related customers, how they should be evaluated while talking about the controls on the certifying body. 50,001 is the accredited certifiable standard. 50,006 gives you the guidelines for basically working out the baseline, and measurement is derived through 50,015. 50,047 talks about how to calculate the energy saving. Most of the time, measurement and instrumentation plays a big role. There is always a measurement uncertainty, or there can be a conscious misrepresentation, what they call it as a greenwashing. In the real life, energy is not saved, but it is projected although it is being saved. So such misrepresentation has to be avoided if at all you're going to claim some benefits associated to the improved version. Of late, the every efforts to claim the benefit associated with the green efforts you're putting in have triggered some malpractices. And to prevent such things getting certified, we have more and more stringent guidelines coming up through the form of the guidelines. So all of us who are professionals in the management system need to know these fundamental standards and start working in whatever role we wish to perform, maybe as an auditor, maybe as a trainer, or maybe as an implementer. Well, the 50,001 as it is 2018 standard, it follows the same guideline, that is a higher level structure, starting with the context, the top management commitment, the planning, clause number 6, then the support systems, actual execution or operational control, the assessment, monitoring, evaluation, and improvisation. So, although the higher level structure is identical, let's understand how and why it is different and how we should act on it. So, this is a major enabler for an organization if they really wish to contribute to their own profitability, to the employee discipline, and indeed to the society. So I would say that 50,001 is a triple win association. Fundamentally, it calls for establishing a system and processes which are energy efficient. So once you have established, now what you have to do is continually improve, because sky is the limit. Or if you permit me to say, when we talk about improvement, even sky is not the limit. So the focus area should be energy efficiency, energy usage, and energy consumption. These are the three key terms used in energy management. There is always some energy loss, and that's why energy use and energy consumption is never identical. So ultimately, this loss function can also be expressed through energy efficiency. All of us need to know these things as an auditor or as an implementer, depending on the type of energy we are using. I started my career with Thermax, and with Thermax, a simple change of a flaring burner design or a fuel, that is the coal design, or the process of burning, that is a fluidized bed, have changed the efficiency considerably. I'm not talking about economizers, I'm not talking about any other recovery mechanisms. But then each small contribution by energy saving matters a lot. In fact, I'm working with some of the organizations like Energy Systec, which are in the furnace business. And I'm also leading some of the energy audits as well as energy conventions. I mean, those of you who are in Pune or even otherwise can always participate in one of the energy convention which is scheduled in Pune in a hybrid mode. If you are interested, by the end of the day session, I'll share the links with them. So energy is definitely is a contemporary issue, and it's on the first priority agenda for each and every organization. We have to successfully implement an EMS through a up till now. I mean, anything that doesn't matter directly as a raw material was never in our agenda. Every negotiation, every single penny negotiation with the supplier was appreciated as a purchase performance indicator. But the efforts you put in conserving the energy was always underestimated. The maintenance team was never given the due credit for saving and conserving the energy. So now we need to enhance and bring this in the forefront so that the commitment from all levels and the basic awareness, starting from the top to bottom, becomes very, very essential. And like every other management system standard, unless we have a top management commitment, we really can't achieve anything. You agree? So typically when we are talking about the PDCA mapping of this energy management system, it starts with the internal external issues. And in internal external issues, indeed, we are deriving the needs and expectations of the interested parties. So the proper efficient machinery. In fact, certain machinery after the life is over, people tend to sell it off, and there are people who are willing to buy it for the cost investment, capital cost investment. But there is always a trade-off. What is the working cost? If at all it is not energy efficient, you are going to end up and to spend more over a time. So, well, that needs and expectations right from the top management in terms of costing, the performance the machine should be working, that is the employee productivity, and the end result, that is the end customers and the suppliers. So all these have a direct and indirect linkage with your energy performance or the machine and equipment performance. So all these factors you have to consider and use a strategic direction, because as a leader, you don't have infinite funds. You have to navigate through and really utilize the best possible options that you have. So the leadership role is at the central, and they take the strategic directions and come out with a proper guidelines through the policies and objectives and schedule the plans up to an actionable level. So clause number 4, clause number 5, and clause number 6 together form the part of planning. Then we have the support, that is the infrastructure that is required for the execution, as well as the operational controls that are laid down based on the baseline reviews. That is a part of doing. However, life is not so predictable or comfortable, and the association with dynamics always call for some monitoring and ongoing evaluation of our estimates. All our management systems are proactive in the nature, which means they're based on the estimates, which also means that certain performance monitoring is very, very essential to validate our systems and the people behavior, which both are unpredictable. So based on this monitoring and evaluation, we always see and get the triggers for improvisation. It can be a substandard act, it can be substandard condition, or it can be the system that needs for improvisation where control is not defined or control is not followed. Whatever is a cause for the loss, you have to correct it. This is nothing but the PDCA in the nutshell when we talk about the energy management in the context of today's discussion. If you're going to the clause-wise review, obviously we are going to start with clause number 4. And clause number 4 talks about understanding the organization and its context. Clause number 2, as I said, needs an expectation right from the top management in terms of the investments funds, the operators for the machine condition, and the end users for the return and the productivity and quality. So once you have identified your contractual, legal, internal, external factors, you can work out what is your scope, that is applicability, and devise your processes for energy management system. Ideally, this is nothing but the first context where you do the environment scanning and decide what are your focus areas. Once those focus areas are identified, then comes the role of top management where they set in the strategic direction to utilize the best what is available and set the direction through a proper quality policy and allocating the role, responsibilities, and authorities to have a successful execution for energy management. The next clause is the heart of this whole process. As I said, that 4, 5, 6 is your planning input. Then there is a strategic planning, which is the top management. And then you have an output, which is actionable controls that are derived through it. So obviously, while planning, we look at the current energy types, the various current uses, including the potential energies that you're aiming at, and focus on the energy consumption. Once we know, we identify what is the gap between the consumption and the use. And once we have identified this gap, we know what to improvise on. So you're going to look at the energy reviews and identify the opportunities where you can improvise on this significant energy unit. SEU is a jargon used as a significant energy units, which are consuming maximum energy and where there is a scope for improvisation. Identify what are the variables and how best we can control the performance using the personnel, that is their competency as well as the behavior. And identify the energy performance improvement plans. So this is nothing but in crux at operational level management. And with this, we get an output where our projections in terms of energy consumptions, future projected energy consumptions, how best we can improvise, which are significant energy units, which are performance indicators, which are the baselines, and what could be your performance indicators in terms of objectives, targets, and action plans. Ideally, as I said, all this is entirely based on the systematic energy data collection plan, right? Because a wrong data is as good as a garbage in, garbage out. A very critical measurement system analysis, including the uncertainty calculation and deep knowledge of instrumentation, plays a major role. So all of us need to have a little technical input. This standard is more technical than any other standard. So obviously, the core clause that all of us need to understand directly or to hire some expert to interpret it is proper interpretation of energy review. So the consumption based on measurement, and when we talk about measurement, as I said, there has to be a clear measurement system analysis. The accuracy of the instrument, the uncertainty, the R&R errors, everything will have to be taken into consideration. The critical data. Then what are the types of energy? Obviously, it need not be always electricity. It can be fuel based. It can be diesel for the DG set. It can be coal or any other briquettes if you're using a boiler. So depending on various types of energy that you're using. Also look at the trends and the future consumptions. And ultimately look at the significant energy units, because these are the key areas where we need to improvise. They will be the key contributors to our performance. Ultimately, you have to start defining the variables and always look at what is my current, because all your benchmarking starts with current performance. The people, because as I said, the people play a major role who can influence the controls. Then the prioritized opportunities, because everything and anything you cannot do it overnight. You demand a time and the funds for that. So you have to prioritize. So ultimate priorities that you have defined and the projected future energy usage or energy consumptions. In most of the vehicles now, they are trying to replace the fuel by use of hydrogen or by solar or some other options, alternate. Same thing is happening in every industry. So these future usage will have their own impacts and their energy consumption levels. So ultimately, they are going to impact your review results. So you have to define at what interval you're going to conduct the reviews and how you're going to respond to the changes in the facilities, equipments, or energy consumption process. So we are trying to identify the performance monitoring information and the results that are coming out of it in the whole process. Once we have identified it, we know the key controls or the key targets. They are known as the performance indicators. And once you have identified the proper indicators, which are appropriate to measurements and monitoring, we can always enable the organization to demonstrate their performance improvement. Because what you are checking at the output need not be the same at the input. What you measure at input is your consumption. What you measure at output is your utilization. And the difference between the two is a loss. So the device that you have used for the input measurement and output measurement, the method that you have used also need to have an equivalence established. Because there is every chance you are giving an energy in the form of electricity and you are getting a steam generated. So the calorific value calculation and the equivalent correlating the two different form of energy and defining the performance indicator is a pure engineering or pure scientific calculations. Any small error and any improper uncertainty in the calculations will give you a misleading calculations or a misleading enablers, triggers. So this becomes very, very critical. When we are implementing in Bell, that is Bharat Electronics, a whole full-fledged dedicated SCADA system having 125 controllers distributed across the plant was utilized for the monitoring and measurement devices. And that was also having a built-in control for load balancing and the issues related to that. However, this was quite an investment, more than 2 crores investment. Not necessarily every organization will afford to have this. So they have to devise what is the method they are going to use and then work out with ANPI. With IIT Chennai, the experts are joining us and we are taking dedicated SME energy improvisation projects. Those who cannot afford to have an elaborate system, we can always have a dedicated customized system for monitoring their performance indicators and how best they can devise their data purely based on the scientific calculation. We develop an application and give it to them so that they can start working on it. Ultimately, we are aiming at performance improvisation and establishing a proper data collection and measurement analysis systems. However, whatever we thought is the best based on our estimates may not be always the best, and we may have to review, revise, and upgrade it. Compare with the baselines. If everything is perfect, if your method is perfect, then obviously you're going to achieve a better result. And if not anything, your baseline will change, which will call for a review. So the meticulous monitoring, the dedicated evaluation, and the improvisation through timely review is the foundation for this energy management system. Are we clear on this? This is very, very important, and all of us need to understand this. The most important concept which is coming in the energy management system is a baseline definition. Most of the organization don't have a baseline data. So the first exercise we start doing it is to collecting this data and have to conduct an energy review. The time period we considered can be 3 to 6 months. At time, if the processes are too complex, we can extend it to 9 to 12 months also. Then we, after collection of this data, we identify what are the variables. These variables can be the variable loads, it can be seasonal changes, it can be many other factors. They're specific to industry under consideration. And then we work out the static as well as dynamic performance over the time span. We carry out the normalization of the performance indicator values to the corresponding baseline. As I said, the input can be electricity or fuel and the output can be the steam generated. So this calorific value getting converted into energy equivalent becomes very, very vital when we are trying to work out the energy efficiency. Depending on the nature of the activities, it can be a simple adjustment or it can be a complex calculations. And this is exactly where the computerization and the cloud computing and the various applications play a major role. This baselines have to be reviewed if the performance indicator is not a true reflection of your performance, or there is a major change in the static factor, that is your instrument is revised, your workloads are revised, and likewise. If you have some other estimated that after 3 years, this machine will have to be overall. So after 3 years, the baseline has to be revised. So that way it is a predetermined method which calls for a change. Also, you have to do it. So relevant variable data as well as what are the baselines and their baseline review plays a very major and fundamental role. Believe me, I mean, as an instrumentation engineer, I have always enjoyed working on these energy baselines. And I have seen that most of the people find it very hectic or unwanted getting into these calculations. But there are softwares available and you can always utilize the support of the ML machine learning as well as the dedicated IoT devices for getting the correct data and calculations. Once we have a correct data, what we are going to do is devise the methodology about sustainable data collection, define the role responsibilities, and how best this data can be sustainably collected through an action plan depending on the size, complexity, and resources. And various measuring devices and monitoring equipments, we are going to use it to have the clear dedication of the key characteristics and how it can be retained for the further demonstration of your compliances or evidences of your compliances relative to the SEUs, that is significant energy units. Also, you have to focus on the consumption and the operational criteria, static factors, as well as the action plans. So all this data gets monitored over a time internally and of course externally through the audits. The importance of the energy improvisation demonstrated through a dedicated execution program, as well as the repeatability and accuracy of data plays a vital role. So once this is done, the core activities as far as energy management are over. Now what we are going to address is a routine management system related activities like resources, competencies, awareness, communication, documented information. Those of you who are familiar with the support system, I'm sure I need not elaborate it at all. But those of you who are novice and new to this field, let me elaborate in very, very brief. When we talk about resources, we talk about 4M: man, machinery, methods, and material being used. Each of them have contribution and impact on energy consumption. The competency of an individual, the equipment efficiency and the upkeep, the material which is causing high losses or otherwise, they're very, very critical in this whole process. A small change in the material properties can really impact. The grade of the fuel being used can impact the energy generation and the consumption and the losses and the wastages. All of you are very familiar with this, right? So having that awareness matters a lot. A single energy improvement drive I can share. We have Katraj Doodh Dairy very near in our setup, and we have been helping them out on energy efficiency. They use boiler feed as a briquettes. That's a waste generated from agriculture that is processed and then that is used for burning as a fuel. Suddenly we realize there is a heavy loss and the efficiency is reduced. And when we checked it, we realized the briquettes have absorbed some of the moisture. We have a proper covered store and also there was no moisture absorption or exposure to rains. Then where was this source? And we started analyzing and we realized the trolleys that were used for loading unloading were not stored in a covered place. So while loading unloading, the operators didn't bother to clean it up or wipe it off. You can understand such a small behavior overlap has resulted into the boiler performance. At the same time, it has exceeded the energy as well as environmental parameters. Because briquettes can absorb moisture very fast and you cannot see it. Only thing when it starts burning, that time it first it is that evaporation of the absorbed moisture, which is a lot of waste, and it also has a lot of fog generation. Right? So this simple awareness of using the clean waterless trolley would be an awareness. It need not be a highly mathematical calculation that everybody should know when we talk about awareness. Awareness to the role, responsibilities, compliance to the guidelines, and consequence of non-compliance should be known to the concerned user. Same thing, the transportation vehicle, the loading, unloading plays a major role when it comes to fuel, right? Not necessarily everybody is aware. So having a proper verbal, non-verbal, visual communication plays a major role. And especially when it comes to the communication to the regulatory authorities is extremely important, because any violation because of not you, maybe a subcontractor, or maybe the transporter, or maybe the raw material supplier itself, has resulted into the emission which is not permissible limit, you as an organization are answerable for it. Keep aside the cost, it becomes a legal issue. So all of us need to understand what are these internal external communications, and when it becomes legal, how vital and how critical it can be. Ultimately, we need to define what are the guidelines and what are the evidences of our execution of the controls as a part of documented information system, where the substandard act and the substandard conditions can be minimized and always improvised through a proper system. So this is all about clause 7 in nutshell. And with this, we can go to clause number 8, that is an operational control. Basically, in clause number 8, we are talking about the maintenance activities, because most of the losses are because of the maintenance, not upkeep. So the significant energy usage and ensure the consistency for the energy policy and objectives and targets, to detect deviations, if any, and to correct the situation. We also talk about the criteria. This cleaning up of the trolleys could have been one of the operational criteria. And it can be as high as the boiler flaring efficiency or the type of boiler you have used as a part of the facility. Solar panels are very commonly used in most of the places as a concentrator, and they give the input to the feed water. But how many of you are aware, if the solar panels are not well maintained, the feed water doesn't reach the temperature what is expected? The simple things like upkeep of the facilities, the equipment, the energies being consumed and energy being used, they're different. So we have to establish these processes, and we have to meticulously monitor these, going into the basic engineering and writing the energy balance or energy flow equations and monitoring them meticulously. And this is exactly where I count on these IIT brains and indeed our softwares, which help us in a big way. Ultimately, defining the operational controls once they are established and monitoring them, supervising them, and ensuring they are well established as per the set criteria is, of course, the fundamental requirement. And certain cases, we realize that our team is not competent, we may have to outsource it. So such outsource significant energy units also are our responsibilities. They are our babies because we have got the support from external parties. So we need to address these points also equally well. If you all remember a simple change in design, I told you the methodology of burning the fuel, having a fluidized bed, having a vibrator, switching over from briquette to coal or vice versa, a different grade of a coal. These are all design inputs. And they matter a lot when it comes to selection, modification, or renovation of the facilities, equipment, and the systems. A small change in the basic flaring, the boiler flare design will impact your efficiency in a big way. And same way, switching over from even the lighting and using a small motion sensors will impact in a big way your energy consumption pattern. So basically your performance evaluation, specification, design and procurement, they all have to go hand in hand when it comes to operational controls. The documented information of design activities and the results that you have achieved has to be audited internally, and they become very critical external audit parameters. As I said, the procurement also should have a consideration about energy performance. Most of the people go by the cost, lowest bid is a requirement. But you have to see cost as a whole life cycle, not one time, that is a purchasing cost. If at all it is going to have a poor energy performance, the consumption over a time will be very, very poor. I'm working with a very small electronic company. It's a micro level company called Milux. They're in the lighting system. And they have a lot of computerized controls and they're patented products. Of course, they're all LEDs and LCDs. But when I was talking about the procurement, they expressed that most of the electronic components, they're trying to buy it from OEMs. But in between the COVID days, they have to depend on local traders. And believe me, there were some spurious LEDs which impacted the performance. And when it comes to testing of electronic components like LEDs, the only method that you can have is it works or doesn't work. At the most, you can check the energy consumption. But how it will work at the heated temperature or how it will work at a different continuous life test, we cannot have the time. We just go to the market and define the specification in terms of the current size and the looks, red or green LED that way. But this was a spurious components that they got it during the COVID time because the China import was challenge and strain. And I realized their overall testing and the product complaints were increased. That is a role of procurement. Having controls to detect and eliminate the counterfeits and having a proper energy performance matters a lot. So the suppliers need to have some proper agreements irrespective of calamities like pandemic, and the alternate sources strategies will play a major role on your energy. So how you are conveying and getting the procurement department involved, it is not only the maintenance department job, it is everybody's job. And it is not everybody's job just to put off the lights when not used. So each and every person in an organization need to understand their role, their contribution, and overall how does it impact the energy. Are we together? All right. I'll
Yes,
do
ma'am.
that. Good. So typically when we are referring to our performance or performance review, this is a very simple pictorial representation. Supposing it is a scale, your reference value is X up to this. And over a time, through a proper design, proper environment control, that is through employee engagement, proper material control, all for a man material method machine, you could achieve a better result. Then indeed we say that we have achieved an improvement. And believe me, this improvement is not only cost saving and contribution to environment, that is the society in general. This is tremendous motivation to your workforce. We can do it is a great trigger or motivation for your employees. So once they have achieved it, they will always like to do better and better. Nothing succeeds like a success. So it can be a very good technical and intellectual as well as the behavioral trigger for your people. I would strongly suggest whether you go for ENMS, that is energy management system, or otherwise, take up some energy management projects as your organizational strategic direction. Whether you go for environment, energy, IMS, ISMS, QMS, it's your choice. But having energy is no control, or energy management is no choice. It is a fundamental requirement for your organizational existence. And the concept is very clear, simple, logical, based on the foundation science. And indeed, it calls for the human engagements and the behavioral influencing. The overall organizational culture also plays a major role. But it is self-sustaining because once you start getting result, it starts getting better and better. Well, team, coming to the next clause, that is the monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation. Obviously, we are going to follow the parameters, that is PMI, baselines, and the reviews as a part of your monitoring measurement. You're also going to have the system being reviewed through internal audits and improvised wherever required, and ultimately have the timely management review. An explicit requirement of management review in this standard, we are going to discuss a little later. But let's understand the methodology required. Firstly, you have to set the system by defining the frequency, and this frequency should be dynamic, but also fixed time, whichever is earlier. Then responsibilities, who is assigned the measuring responsibilities, because this needs competence. Measuring electrical current without a competence will mean suicidal attempt. Same thing applies to the thermal or any other energy. Energy is always a high risk. So the competence plays a major role. Then the analysis, this needs a statistical expertise as well as instrumentation and measurement expertise. So it can be also application driven. So clearly define these things. And then you have to define the criterias, how the results are to be acceptable, not acceptable, how they are going to be evaluated. This should be documented. And then what are the actions you have taken? So this is again a PDCA built in based on the competency. And the deviations always triggered for the improvisation. So this is overall the check part of the energy management system. And believe me, it's quite interesting. I would like you all to really focus in whatever area you're working in and whatever best way you can achieve. Because this is going to contribute for our future generation, for our sustenance as well as the business continuity. Although we don't use the jargon business continuity so explicitly. When I was working with quite a few companies in Dubai and Qatar, business continuity becomes a prime issue because there are two areas. One, they're working on water management, and second, they're working on energy management. And these are government sector undertaking also. So all of us, whether like or not, have to really understand how best we can improvise on our current performance of energy. The dedicated requirement in MRM, as I said, is clause 9.3.3. It talks about extent to which the objectives and targets have been met, the performance improvement based on the measurement, and the result of ENPI, performance indicator, and status of action plan. In addition to management output, they have given these very, very explicitly and clearly so that your focus should not get diluted. And the top management, as well as all the key players, are made well aware of the contemporary issues as well as the current level. And together, intelligently, they can brainstorm and come out with a better way. Very important. Ultimately, when you're talking about continual improvement, there can be two ways of continual improvement. One is learning from the mistakes, corrections and corrective actions and NCRs. And one is genuinely investing on some technology or otherwise suggestions for behavior control. Dashboards plays a major role. So simple application prompts, alarms, and the dashboards are being incorporated. And if you're talking about the energy management system, going for some engineering solution like energy harvesting or sunlight harvesting, and then auto sensors and correction industry 4 solutions are also very common. I was referring to Milux control panels, and they have the similar devices. And there are quite a few. If you just Google out, you'll see many such improvisation, which can be technological and engineering solutions. At the same time, there can be the behavioral controls, and ultimately, always learning from the mistakes. So you understand, get the people involved. Everybody, including the workers, should be well aware. As I said, I'm again going back to the same favorite example of mine. The briquette carrying conveyors, if they are weight, it only means that you're inviting for trouble. So get the interested parties to identify the need for corrective action, go for the root cause, investigate the root cause for the incidences, communicate, report the incidences, and take care of the risks. Indeed, we have to learn from the mistakes, trigger the improvisations, and ensure that we enhance our energy performance day by day. If you can do that, we are ready for certification. But believe me, certification is not the only goal. If you really want to have a focused strategic guideline through a policy, then the targets, a proper data demonstrating the things, proper measurement system and the equipments used, timely review for the substandard acts, substandard controls, and improvising on the energy management put together will mean 50,001. Sounds quite logical. But believe me, it takes a lot of time to identify if there is a gap. If you start writing the energy balances and identifying the gaps, it's a massive exercise. And I don't want to threaten you all, but then yes, it needs a lot of and deliberate efforts and timely monitoring, identifying and improvising. But it's challenging. Once it is proven, you really have a great intellectual satisfaction and a pleasure. Tremendous teamwork and tremendous triggers, self-sustenance come thereafter. Well, certification becomes incidental, but what is more important is we establish a system of compliance, safety as well as energy culture, a transparent, objective, dependable, and improvising process. As I said, nothing succeeds like success. So if you take it up as an improvising culture and learning organization, the employees are engaged with you. They feel nice, happy, and proud to be with you. It is a great developing leadership because it's not only the leaders who are decision maker. The decision making ability is delegated to the downline worker. They know exactly what is their role and how to do that. So it becomes like everybody in the organization plays a major decision making and improvisation role, which is a leadership role. So it's like a self-motivating teams and self-motivating organization who are really dependable. They're contributing for self, organization, as well as society. They invest in preventions and continual improvement. Follow the management system in the true intent and implementation. Believe me, no customer pressure or there won't be any tender that you have to follow the energy, at least till today. I don't know the targets which are coming aggressively, that zero carbon 2030 or ESG pressures being built up across the globe. There's every chance that unless you are environment certified, you need not have a business. Same way, there can be customer pressure. But touch wood, till today, there is no customer pressure. It should be totally driven by the management commitment. Right? So this is, as I said, a latest entry in this management system regime. Little technical, but highly motivating and highly challenging. So all of you who are interested in doing it, let's understand what are the steps. Start with training and learning, which all of you have already started by joining this. Then define what is the scope and your area of control, the boundaries, the applicabilities, the locations, based on your internal, external issues, the needs and expectation of the stakeholders. Finalize the processes, and then based on the top management directives and the operational planning, start for the awareness, implementations. And once you're ready with the first cycle of implementation, go for internal audit. Do go for management review. And once you're ready for it, apply to any certifying body, get the quotation, have the reviews. Finalize a CB, you have a 3 years agreement with the certifying body. Learn from the value addition from the auditors and always improvise on your system. Once you finalize it, you're want to go for an initial visit where they identify the gaps. And once those gaps are identified, you have to close them when they'll come for the certification audit. And after closing of the findings, you get the final certificate. But this certificate is valid for 3 years subject to successful periodic audits and thereafter the recertification. So those of you who are interested in going for the certification steps will have to follow this whole regime of certification. And I'm sure most of you have developed the interest or at least some enthusiasm to go and look back to identify the wastages and to improvise on it. With that, I'm sure I'm done with the agenda points that I've scheduled. I'd like to stop sharing and allow your team, leaving this open for question answers.
Thank you, ma'am, for the presentation and explaining topic in a simplifying way. Ma'am, there are Anand Singh sir and Haresh sir put the question in the chat box now.
Yes, I can see Mr. Anand. Yes, any university can go for ENMS certification. Any organization can go for ENMS. Energy audit is an input to identify the gap, but they can follow any other baseline reviews also. The standard is not making it mandatory to go for energy audit. And if you can hire a qualified external energy auditor, nothing like it. I'm afraid there's some background noise, Weber. Thank you for muting. So, Mr. Anand, whether I was audible? Yes.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I can.
University can go for energy management system. Then it's not mandatory to go for an energy audit, but it is desirable because you get an input where you don't reinvent the wheel. Any knowledgeable guide can always help you. And as I said, if you feel it is very, very costly, there are options like IIT Chennai students, they have to do their internship. They do it free for you with their mentors from the IITs. And indeed, their travel and the stay cost you have to bear.
So how to contact them?
And I'll share you these, share your contacts. I'll definitely share these things to you. By the way, I'll give in my chat message my contact details. So those of you who really are interested and energy enthusiast can approach me on this mail ID.
Because what I understand in the industry, the wrong message which is being seen by them, that only the heavy equipment machinery organizations are supposed to go for energy management, not any office operations or any university or school type. But universities
I'll
start
tell you
operating now.
honestly, they are being mandated. They have no choice but to go for it, right? Because now, as a country level, we are talking about the carbon footprint reduction. So any carbon incentive or any energy incentive organization are mandated to go for energy audit. But people like you and me, that is the academicians, trainers, tutors, university professors, are now trying to take it as a mission and trying to educate every possible way. So an university, in fact, I have done a project with Vamnicon, Vaikuntha Mehta Institute of Management, that is near Pune University, Pune campus. And we have developed some of the energy projects and protocol over there so that any visitors coming there can always learn for it. In Pune, we have an energy park near Sarasbag. And then if you go to Ramakrishna Math Mission School, Vidya Prashala in Mysore, they have dedicated energy conservation projects. So I can name n number of options where they're most effectively utilizing their energy things. And personally, I mean, are you Pune based? I mean, are you India based, Mr. Anand?
Yeah, Delhi.
Delhi. So I'll share you a link where we have a convention on energy with QCFI organized virtually. So if you wish to participate, you'll see n number of industries participating as well as academicians participating and sharing their energy improvisation drives. Nowhere it calls for an investment, nowhere it calls for a mandatory audit. Unless you cross certain level, like for steel, hello.
Yes, ma'am. I'm here.
Yeah, thank you. So basically, you can always go for additional control and monitoring and necessarily CAPA following the baseline review. And being a university, you will be clear about the basic calculation, basic instrumentation. And if you have done a mistake, the auditors will correct.
Thank you, ma'am. And it was very precise and very crispy information which you have shared. Although I joined, came and joined. And thank you for a very good session and very crispy and clear.
Thank you, my pleasure. Right, should we go to the next point?
Yes, ma'am. There are another question from Haresh sir. What is the
Yes. What is the frequency of performance review and at what interval? The standard is not specific about it. It says the organization has to define what is the frequency. For example, I'm having a cyclic performance. I'm a hotel industry. And I generally get the maximum energy load only in the holidays, that is the Mays and Diwalis. So obviously my performance would be considering a year. Now I'm giving you another example. I'm a boiler industry and I need to monitor 24/7 my emission as well as energy consumption. Then my energy monitoring is 24/7. Are we clear? So depending on the context, depending on the controls, the review frequency shall be, the standard cannot define it. It is contextual. It should be logical and you should be able to justify the interval you have selected. Have I answered you, sir? Harish? Hello? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So hopefully Harish is there or not, I don't know. But the context is, it is, you have, it depends. You have to look at what are the issues and then decide the frequency. It should be logical enough to identify one cycle and improvise for the gaps. All right. And the thumb rule is quarterly. If there is no other variables, which is annual or everyday monitoring is only for monitoring, the deviation shall be monitored monthly or quarterly. Well, I can see these are compliments. Thank you, Mr. Nagaraju. Thank you, Mr. Ria. I think there seemed to be no question because it is little technical.
Ma'am, there are one more question from Ravi Shankar, sir. Any construction company got a certificate for energy management system?
Well, I'm not aware of. At least I'm not aware of. In fact, this question can be answered by ISC team. Do you have any construction company client? I mean, I'll just check and come back to you. We'll have to simply search, Google it out, and you'll get the answer. This standard is not popular like 9,000 for the obvious reason. It is not driven by the tenders and the customers. Whatever are the losses, the organization has to absorb it. And if they can afford to lose it, fine, you can afford. I mean, see, Deming used to say survival is not mandatory, isn't it? Suicide is offense, criminal offense. But if you want to leave hodgepodge, nobody will challenge you and call you criminal, isn't it? Same way, if you're running your organization non-efficiently, your customers are least bothered. It is your survival at stake. So the lack of awareness, how does it impact my business, is missing. I've talked with so many industry where they are not energy efficient, and I ask them, why are you not controlling it? Their approach is, this is not my priority. My priority is raw material. My priority is so many other things but energy. And this is nothing but lack of awareness. If you're saying your priority is fund, then this is a fund saving opportunity. Why are you not considering it? It needs a lot of mentoring. It needs a lot of consoling. It needs a lot of counseling. In fact, now, as I said, most of these organizations with the global pressures are talking about carbon neutral 2030 and zero energy by 2030. So all these pressures will start using a supply chain drive and it will become popular soon, hopefully. But honestly, it won't be as popular as 9K because it is a lot of technicalities involved in it. 9K is more generic, where this is very little engineering oriented. So people having a proper engineering background only can appreciate it and will take it up. Yeah, I can see Mr. Vinay Tripathi. Does this standard fall under mandatory compliance requirement? There is no standard management system standard calling for mandatory compliance requirement. Management system standards are always voluntary. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anybody from ICS? Actually, when there are no questions, we always say everybody has understood everything or nobody has understood anything. But there are some compliments, so I take it positively, assuming that it has just generated the very beginning or the trigger what is required to get into this. This was a curtain raiser. In 1 hour, I cannot even imagine talking about everything.
Hello.
Yep,
Yeah, Madam Ravishankar from Bangalore.
yep.
Yeah, I think the session was very good, Madam. Based
Thank you.
based on this session, we understood man, method, material, and
Material.
finance. So all these 5 M's should be taken care for losses, and so that we can improve our fund losses, energy losses, and so I am in this construction company, so that we always have that materials, a lot of materials involved. And, so that my question was this only, that really if it is more, if by implementing this efficiency means in the material or the wastage, so we can reduce the losses of the material.
Considerably. I have 3 projects done with Chirkes as a part of Green Productivity Initiative with Epio Tokyo. I was mentored by a gentleman from Norway, Dr. Supron. And we have fantastic, more than 50% profit increased. And I'm saying profit more than 50%. That was in construction. Yeah. So we definitely have scope. If you follow your engineering acumen or the science, basic physics, and start writing the energy balances, you are shocked to see how wastefully we are performing. And for no reason, people don't even think how to travel or how to control the other things and spend on fuel, because they don't feel that the fuel they have to pay, it is a company paid fuel. There are many issues. I mean, honestly, all of us work on this through FPO. We work on this through various forums. And now, with this increasing awareness on global reporting initiative as well as the zero carbon footprint, this will come in the forefront. All of us, including India, has committed to reduce the carbon footprint. So the focus area of reduction of carbon footprint is going to be energy. No matter whatever industry you are in, whether construction or otherwise, you'll have to be conscious about energy. Energy world is going to be tomorrow's world. And all said and done, that hydrogen and all are not easy. We have in across India only one hydrogen operated cargo. Hello. Audible? There was a
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, yes, ma'am, audible.
So this particular ship, when I was interacting with this expert, they said, "Man, the hydrogen getting converted from gaseous to fuel itself consumes such a high energy that I don't know whether it is energy efficient." So if you write the overall life cycle balance, hydrogen fuel is also not very efficient. Agreed?
Yeah, madam.
Somebody is saying something, I'm not able to hear it. If it is a background noise, we can as well mute it.
I'm muting it.
Thank you. Fine. So energy is a very complex thing, but it is becoming the contemporary issue because of the carbon footprint. Although it is not very popular like 9K, and it need not be popular like 9K, it should be focused engineering efforts, and we should be able to contribute to the Mother Earth. Because by energy, we mean natural resource depletion. Alternate energy is not yet very user-friendly. Well, Vaibhav,
Yes,
a big
ma'am.
thank you to all of you because most of them are started doing a lot of introspection and there are no queries. I have given my contact details if anybody has to get in touch with me for the seminar or the conventions or the further questions. And they can always write to me or they can write to Vaibhav and Vaibhav will route it to me. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
No, if there are no questions, shall we conclude?
So yes, ma'am. Now I request delegates to please put your question in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask directly. If anyone have any question.
So you can always say this
So,
was a stunning
yes.
performance. Nobody has any questions, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So thank you, ma'am.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank
Good day.
you.
Bye-bye. Can I leave, dear Vaibhav?
So ma'am, just wait for a few minutes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Go ahead.
Our next session on 13 May 2023 shall be taken by Mr. Dominic Fernandez. He shall be covering Introduction to Cybersecurity, Major Threats to Cybersecurity, Current Trends in Cybersecurity, Cybersecurity Tools and Solutions, followed by question and answer session. ICS is pleased to provide all its research and development, integrated management system, QMS, EMS, and OSHA, excellence in education management, ISO made easy in Gujarati, Marathi, Telugu, and Hindi. For reading any of the above book, please contact below. Feedback form. Please register on www.sadgunsang.org and go in your login and give feedback. Now now we shall be covering. Now we officially thank you for being a part of Sadgun Sang. Now we officially close the session. Thank you, everyone.